Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brooke, your host, and on today's episode, I'm sitting down with Lori, who is a stay-at-home mom of 3, and this episode is just such a beautiful one. Lori went from having an unmedicated hospital birth to then transitioning into home birth for her second and her third. Her story is just all about the importance of a strong support system, a deep prayer life, and learning to truly surrender in birth. Taking your fears and your desires to the Lord and just allowing His will to lead you every step of the way. So please join me as we are holding space for her story. Hey Lori, thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story. Before we dive into each of your births, because I know that you're going to be sharing all 3 of your birth stories, so I'm really excited to get into those. But before we do that, what would you say is the biggest theme that God has written across your motherhood journey so far?
Man, definitely I can't do it myself. I don't know.
Yes.
A lot of times, growing up, I was confident in my teens and early 20s, I can do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the Lord, but obviously when I started having kids, it was just like a whole new dependence on Him because it
Yeah.
is hard. There's a lot of
Yeah.
hard times, but yet He wants to meet us there. And I've just learned to really lean on Him because half the time I don't know what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
I ask
Yeah.
him for peace and for guidance. And also, it's like understanding God's love for me in a whole new way when I look at my children the way I love them and I would do anything for them. And he's like 100 times more, way more,
Yeah.
not even.
Yeah, I love that. And, when you look back at all of your births again, how did each birth shape you spiritually and emotionally?
Yeah, I would definitely say for Avery, my first, it was definitely a whole lot of confidence. Like, confidence, I can do this. I know that God has equipped me to be able to give birth, but I questioned if I could do it.
Yes,
And
yes.
spoiler alert, it was never about me. And I needed to depend on him, but that was definitely my mindset going in is like to do this. Like I have to be strong to do this. And so that definitely was revealing as I went through. My second auto, I learned full surrender to the Lord, like physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It's all the things. It's a very holistic experience for birth. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I had to surrender all of that. And not most of the way, but all the way. And we'll get into why. It was definitely a big lesson. And then Lainey, my third birth, it was more of like an intentional prayer and intimacy of a walk with the Lord. And that sounds like really big and robust. I asked the Lord intentionally about a lot of things, but I also had my hand open and was like, Your will be done. So that was a big takeaway for that.
I love that. I think that is so important too because birth is going to birth. That's just how it is. And no matter how much you prepare, I do think that preparation and education is obviously key. Praying and stuff like that is obviously key. But God knows, obviously, His will is going to happen no matter what, no matter how much you do. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into your first birth. So if you have any background information that we need to have going into it, go ahead and share that. And then I'm just going to let you tell your story uninterrupted.
Yeah, think so. Going into my first birth, I work in the medical system. I'm an OT. My family worked in the medical system. And so I was very pro, I would say medical. I don't know how to say that. But since then, my thoughts have changed in some respects. I think that there's a time and a place. So hear my heart in that. I still
Yes.
work in it. So there is value. But in birth, I don't feel like it's necessarily the first go to because God created this to be a beautiful thing. He created us to have babies and to replicate, be fruitful, multiply, and we don't have to be so scared or make it like a medical procedure. So I knew going into birth that I wanted to go unmedicated for 2 reasons. One is my mom and my sisters had all had an unmedicated birth. So I felt like I had this innate pressure, like they could do it, so I can do it, kind of a thing. And then my second thing is, and this might sound kind of weird, so hear my heart, but I felt like an internal responsibility as a believer to like go through the punishment that the Lord gave in a
Mm.
sense. Like this was a curse because that we sinned. And I wanted to do my best to try to just to lean in the Lord and see him through that, even though I knew it was going to be really hard. So that was my mindset going into birth. Had an OB that I literally just found because they had good reviews. But this guy, it was a male. I don't know why I ever
Mm.
got an OB male. And he was like my dad's age, which is super weird. Hindsight's 2020. My pregnancy was really chill. It was calm. I was really sick at the beginning. I did find out that I was having a girl, so we were excited for that. I was working full time, so that was a different challenge, but I felt good. I had no issues. I read two books. So one was Mama Natural. Trying to think of the whole title, but Mama Natural, and it was like week by week, what is going on with the baby and with me. And I absolutely love that. And every week she hit on a topic of birth. And I just felt like it was so eye-opening to all the different tools that I could have in my tool bag in a sense, because I didn't know specifically what would work for me and I couldn't prepare just one thing. I feel like that's what I learned a lot is just have multiple options and then when you get to it, use what works best for you. So I really enjoyed that and I actually did Seth and I did their birthing class that was
Mm.
virtual and I really enjoyed that. And watching that, they did a lot of home births and I was like, I want to do a home birth. I don't want to have an option to get the epidural because I don't know if I'm strong enough to say no.
Yeah.
And so, but that freaked Seth out. There was like no way. I didn't know anyone that had a home birth. And
Hmm.
so he was like, no, we're going to a hospital. I want to make sure that this baby is safe. This is my baby too. I was like, fine, whatever. So, then the other book that I did read was The Husband Coach Child, or yeah, the childbirth. So it was based on the Bradley method. And so I enjoyed reading that and I made Seth read it just for some things that he could potentially do to help me through because I didn't get a doula or anything my first time around. So it was 39 weeks and I started bleeding, but I kept going to the bathroom and I would have these big clots.
Mm.
And I thought that was weird, so I called my OB office. I was supposed to work that day, so I called off and told them what was happening, and they said, just put your feet up, and if it doesn't change, let us know. So I did, and it kind of helped, but then when I would get up to go to the bathroom, there'd be another clot. And so I was like, this is really strange. And then I started getting in my head, like, I don't think she's moving as much. And I don't know, I started questioning. So they had got me an appointment later that day at like 2:30, but sitting at home letting your mind race, I was like, I
Yeah.
cannot do this. Like, what if
Yeah.
something's going on? I don't want to regret this. So I went ahead and went into the hospital, and funny enough, it took forever to see someone in triage. But I didn't see someone until my appointment time. They did hook me up to the monitor for contractions, and they were like, "You don't feel any contractions?" And I was like, "No." And I mean, I could feel my belly was tight, and I figured maybe it was Braxton Hicks, but they were like, "You're having pretty intense contractions every 2.5 minutes." I was like, "Well, I don't know. That's
Wow.
great."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if this is the case, this is gonna be a breeze. But anyways, no one knew why I was bleeding. Avery was fine. I looked good on my vitals. They're like, you should just go home. At least that's what the OB office told the midwife there. And I was like, well, I'm a little concerned if we don't know why this is happening. I don't really want to leave. And the midwife on call there, she was like, I agree. I don't really know. Like it's nothing of huge concern, but it is weird. And so they had already checked me. And before this, I had been walking around like 4 centimeters dilated since they started checking. So, what is that, 36 weeks? And so I kept thinking that it was going to happen, but you never know. Everyone dilates differently, or maybe
Yeah.
they were wrong. Who knows? But
Yeah.
that time when they checked me, I was already 6 centimeters and I didn't feel comfortable leaving. So the midwife told me, she was like, well, we could go ahead and induce you. And to me, like, red flags. I'm like, I do not want Pitocin. Like, absolutely no. I
Yeah.
said, is there anything else we can do? Because I agreed that I was concerned. And so she told me, she's like, well, we could break your water and see what happens. And if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have let that happen. But,
Yeah.
I was naive, I didn't know. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds better than Pitocin. And I said, I don't want to be hooked up to an IV. I want to be able to eat. And they were very lenient with that. And so they got everything ready. I went back to a room, and they, right before they broke my water, they did check me again, and I was 7 centimeters and I still wasn't feeling anything. So it was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
And they broke my water, which wasn't painful or anything, but they did have me, I had to be on the monitor for contractions, and they did put the probe in me, which I didn't know what it was, but I saw that little screw. I'm like, I cannot believe that I did that. But
Yeah.
I didn't know what
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
happening
Yep.
necessarily. But praise the Lord, labor started and started quickly. And so my contractions quickly picked up. It was about 4 hours from when they broke my water to where she was here. So it was fairly quick, which was very nice. We had worship music playing. It was just my husband and I. And my nurse was so sweet. And I was bouncing on a ball. They gave me a lot of things that I could kind of move around as much as I could tolerate. But I definitely got uncomfortable quickly, and I just wanted to lay down once they got really intense. And I was on my side a lot, I remember. And Seth just played a music playlist, and I just told him when that was not working, like choose based on tempo and stuff. I didn't make a playlist or anything. And our nurse was like, I really like this song. Like, what is it? And then she was like, well, what church do you go to? And we told her, and sure enough, she goes to the same church, which is so funny. And our
Wow.
church is not terribly big, but
Yeah.
it was just a
That's
cool God
awesome.
moment that she was
Yeah.
there. But she was just such a blessing in that moment. And there's two instances that I was asked for an epidural. In the beginning, it was an easy no, but right at the end, before the shift change, the anesthesiologist came in and was like, I'm going into surgery. This is your last opportunity to get one for like several hours. And I did not say anything, but thankfully, my wonderful nurse spoke up for me, and she was like, she doesn't want one. And in that moment, I really needed her to say that because I was questioning. It was getting so intense to where I was like, if this is going to go on for hours, I think I'm going
Yeah.
to need that. If
Yeah.
if the end is near, I can do it. But
Yes.
that's the hard thing with birth. You just never know, and have to just buckle down. Probably like an hour before I had her, there was shift change. And since it was my first baby, she wanted to stay, but she wasn't sure how long it would be. So she ended
Yeah.
up leaving. And I
Yeah.
encouraged her to do so, which
Yeah.
was so kind of her to offer to stay. But when
That's
we
nice.
changed nurses, it did change the dynamic a lot, which was challenging. But that's just what happens in the medical system. You never know who you're going to have. And I got really intense at the end, and I was like needing to push. I had the urge to push, and my nurse finally checked and was like, oh, yeah, there's the head. And so she called my OB, the OB on call, and they were like, oh, we'll be there soon. And I'm like needing to push. And my nurse is getting in my face, and she's like, no, you cannot push. And so that was a
Wow.
lot. And it took about 20 minutes from then until the OB provider got there. And so it was like, that was a long 20 minutes to be telling an unmedicated woman to not push and getting in my face. But I was like, I really couldn't do anything. And so the OB comes in. At this point, I feel like she kind of went up because then when she got there, I couldn't push her right out. I had to do more work to get her down, which was really unfortunate. And, in these moments, it's like in the medical system, hey, is it okay if a few students come in? And of course, they come like a whole crew of like 5 or 6. Oh my gosh. And I mean,
Yep.
I understand the teaching. And in that moment, I'm like, sure, whatever. And they come in, and I'm like, hi, I'm Lori. What's your name? And my husband looks at me and he's like, what are you doing? You're in labor. But, in between contractions is such a like, it's normal.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
was between contractions, and it's fine. It's like, and then they're like, wait, she's unmedicated? She doesn't have an epidural? How is she like in good spirits? It's not bad in between. It is bad during, but it's all relative. Anyways, when the OB got there, it took probably like 10 minutes for me to be able to get her out, but it all went pretty smoothly. I did really want delayed cord clamping and things, and that didn't happen in the moment. It just all happened so fast. They took some pictures of her on my chest and it was so beautiful, but they were like those live pictures and the amount of hands all over her and all over me and I'm crying, I'm having this moment, but there's like people all around me and I was just like it was different. I had a good experience, but the lighting was really hard. I did use the mirror, which I really enjoyed, especially since I did feel her head going back up. That helped me see how I could hold her down to push her out. And one of my, like, what do you call them? The leg holders, stirrups, was broken. So someone had to hold my leg up. There was just a lot of weird things that kind of didn't go as planned, but it was fine. But overall, it was really great. The surge of hormones, right when that baby comes out and is put on my chest, is like life-changing, emotional. The scream, it's funny, each birth I did the same scream, like with each baby. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just an out-of-body experience. Nothing that I would trade. So I did tear a little bit. So I did have that stitching. Afterwards, it didn't feel too bad compared to what I just been through.
What surprised you the most about labor the first time around?
I mean, I think I kind of got a big head with not feeling the contractions at first. I was like, oh, if this is it, I'm gonna be fine. But boy, was I wrong. They escalated quickly. I was prepared in some sense. I knew that they were gonna be bad, but I feel like I wasn't good at relaxing. And so I was surprised, like I was just really tense with the contractions instead of relaxing and letting my body do what it needed to do. I felt like I was kind of fighting it, but I did enjoy the contraction monitor was kind of nice in a sense that I could see it coming. I could see the peak and then I could see it coming down and that was that was helpful from a mindset standpoint to see that.
Yeah, for sure. Were there any moments where your faith just really anchored you during that birth?
Yeah, I think the worship before was really like getting me in the mindset or more of like an open hand to the spirit being there. And obviously he's there because he lives in us, but it was just more of I don't know, it was very calm and worshipful at the beginning. At the end, I felt like it got so chaotic because so many people, the lighting changed, the sterile environment with people with gloves and these masks, and it just like didn't feel, I don't know. It was just different. My worship music stopped. I didn't have that going, and I probably could have had it going. I just didn't. There was just so much going on that we turned it off, and it changed the dynamic. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it also wasn't zoning in on what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be this worshipful experience. At the end, it was more of what they needed to do, and I just kind of went along with it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I love, though, too, that you can speak to, you can have an unmedicated birth in a hospital. Like, it's not just, I think a lot of times we think that unmedicated automatically means home birth, and that is not the case at all. You can have an unmedicated birth at a hospital, but there are going to be more things that you kind of have to combat, and that's why I always say for myself, a doula with your first or anytime that you're in a hospital is like crucial, or in your, like how you had your husband read that book to help pull out tools for you, like just things like that, because you and that nurse advocating for you too. They're not all nurses and doctors are like that are going to stand in the gap to advocate for you to say like, no, she doesn't want that. So it's great that you were able to experience that with your first, but your second, you decided to do a home birth. And so what was the biggest shift, or what led you to consider home birth after you had your hospital experience?
It was funny. I didn't know anyone that had a home birth prior to having my first child. Now, like a month after I had Avery, I got connected with a couple that I became so good friends with, and they had already had 2 home births. And then I met all these friends through them that had them. And I looked at Seth, I'm like, see, it's not crazy. I was so excited to find people that have had them. And I know that there's people out there. I just didn't personally know them. And so then to have Seth be able to talk with the husbands about it and get their take was really helpful to making that step the next time. And at least he was open to looking into it. That was the thing. And so we went and we met with our midwife the first time and had all of our questions, and we got to meet her in person. And we walked out of there like, yeah, this is what we're doing. Like, there was just the peace of the Lord. She prayed over us and like wasn't pressuring, but she answered all of our questions with grace. She was just so compassionate. You could feel, you knew that the Holy Spirit was in her, and it was just like, I want her as my provider. So that was really exciting to have that shift and that he was on board with that.
Yeah, for sure. How did you discern that decision spiritually and practically?
I mean, spiritually and practically, like, we didn't just go with it. We prayed about it. Like, we made sure that we weren't just making a rash decision because this is what our friends did. We wanted to make sure that it was right for us, that the Lord didn't have any red flags. Thankfully, I have very low risk factors. I had a smooth hospital birth with my first, and I could prove to myself that I could do it unmedicated. So I was like, I'd rather try to do this in an environment that is more conducive and more peaceful in helping me do what I need to do to allow my body to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, for sure. I hear this a lot from people too, especially if you had a hospital birth and then you switch to a home birth for your next. There's a lot of pushback. And especially because you said you had family in the medical field. Obviously, it's not always the case, but how'd you guard your heart and your mind when people just didn't understand your decision with going with a home birth?
Man, that was challenging because I am a person who wears my heart on my sleeve, which can be good in some aspects and challenging in others. And I had to learn that the hard way because I was so excited that I was going to have a home birth and this is what I wanted. And I was just like, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. And like people would ask me and I would say it. And like, I just expected people to love and support me. When I realized that that was quite contrary, that was difficult. And honestly, I talked to my family about it and I got like pretty good feedback. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, and then I had heard from, yeah, my mom is in the medical field and I love her to death. A lot of our family is. And she was positive with me. And then I heard from my sister that she was nervous and anxious, like, and from a mom concern, like I could see that too now, being a mom. I mean, it's something different that people don't do as much these days. And there are a lot of instances where it could be unsafe. And I had told her I wasn't afraid to go to the hospital if I needed to, but I wanted to try to have my child at home. And so anyways, she initially was a part of my birth team, which is kind of funny. And I learned all those things and I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to have to like not have you there because I'm already battling my own like mental battle of things coming in, but I can't have that coming from other people in that environment in that moment. So that was a really hard thing. But the beautiful thing is towards the end, she did come to one of my appointments with me before I had my son. And to be able to meet my midwife team, she did have a whole new level of peace. I still didn't have her come to that one, but it was reassuring to her that my team knew what they were doing and that they were going to be safe and keep me and the baby safe and not do anything too risky.
Yeah.
In the sense of friends, I did share that a lot, and people, man, when there's negative things to say, people don't hold back. And unfortunately, I wish it were the opposite. There was just like a lot of positivity, but it's, people like to share their experiences and they know someone that their baby died doing that. And that was always like some of the first things out of people's mouths. And I'm just like, really? We're not that, in a sense, like we are friends, but like to speak in my life like that, it was really, really challenging. So I have several friends that are doing home births for their first kids now, and I'm like, I encourage you to like not share it with people that you don't need to. And if people ask, feel free to share. And sometimes even like the precursor of, I'm doing something a little different, and I would love and appreciate your support and your encouragement and your prayer. But if you have any negativity or situations, would you mind keeping that to yourself? Because I'm really trying to protect my thoughts and not letting that spiral out of control.
No, that is super powerful. And I think that even with a hospital birth too, I still feel like in all areas of life, you can use that because we just live in a time of social media where we are literally sharing every single thing and then we feel obligated to share every single thing. And when is it really beneficial for you to share all of these things, especially if they're going to give you negativity back? And if you're not ready to combat that stuff to where like the negativity doesn't affect you because you've already prepped your mental state enough to where it just doesn't bother you. But for me, it would bother me because I constantly like overanalyze things way too much and stuff. And I think that it is wise of mothers who don't tell everybody everything. And it's fine if you want to say, oh, yep, I'm having a home birth. And then if somebody wants to chime in with negativity, leave the conversation. Just walk away at that point because you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up. And even if, like, when I was telling people that I was going to have an unmedicated hospital birth, the same response every single time was, just wait, you're going to want that epidural. Well, I didn't get that epidural because I didn't want the epidural. I just feel like if you're doing anything different than what the norm of society is, then everybody has something negative to say, and it's just really disheartening, honestly. But
Birth and motherhood and yeah, really everything.
yeah, and it's already hard enough to like prepare for those things anyways. And I know a lot of people to like of how movies portray birth to where they're just like, oh, just get an epidural and it'll be easy peasy. Maybe in some sense, but like that's not the full picture though. And I think that's the problem too, that the whole picture doesn't get laid out for everyone, whether you're doing medicated or unmedicated in the hospital. Like you should know the whole picture. And it's not just you walk in, you get an epidural, you have a baby and leave. Like there's
Right.
a lot more that goes into it, even if you do get the epidural. I'm gonna go ahead and let you jump into your second story. And if there's any background information, go ahead and tell us that. And I'm gonna let you share uninterrupted.
Awesome. Second birth was my son Otto. I We found out he was a boy right at 14 weeks. We just did one ultrasound with him since now it was like, you just do them if you want. And so we did that just to find out the gender, and everything was really good too. Pregnancy was smooth, no issues there. Definitely got antsy at the end, and also just like the mental battle, I feel like was harder the second and third time because you kind of know what's expected and like what you'll have to do to have that baby in your arms. And I was so excited for it, but leading up to that, there was just so much anxiousness. Like, what is it going to look like this time? Now I don't really have any access to an epidural, relatively. So now I have to do this. And I didn't really experience early labor with my first. So I was just apprehensive of what that was going to look like. And so actually 2 weeks before I gave birth, I had a close friend of mine. Gosh, we have kids about the same age. Our first kids were about 2 weeks apart. We were pregnant with our second. She was 2 weeks ahead of me, and she went into labor. Her pregnancy was good, but there was an instance that they broke her water, and it poorly affected the baby to where it was an emergency C-section. They rushed her to the operating room, and the baby didn't make it. And to have her reach out and text me that like 2 weeks before having my baby, it was just like, what? Like, that's not how it was supposed to go. And she had a healthy pregnancy and just like that. And so it was really emotional, like leading up to the birth. I was just like, how in the world? And just like wrestling with that with the Lord, and just also being excited for this baby in my belly. So it was just like this heavy, heavy emotions and just like longing, heartache for my friend. Man, that was a challenging couple of weeks. And then just trying to mentally prepare for what I knew was coming for Otto. And so the week he was born, it was like 39 weeks, sorry, and 4 days, or 3 days, and I started leaking. I My underwear was getting pretty wet, and I was like, okay, this is different than like my mucus plug. I think I had lost like a day or two before that. And so I'd been communicating with my midwife, and then my underwear started to continue to get wet, and I would change and they would get wet. And so my midwife was like, okay, why don't you take the kit and do the amniotic fluid test? So I did that and it was positive, and eventually it had stopped. And so she was like, okay, hopefully you go into labor in the next 24 hours. Now we're kind of starting our clock. Why don't you rest tonight? And then if nothing happens in the morning, we'll talk about doing castor oil or something to kind of get labor started. And so thankfully overnight, probably like 6 or 7 a.m., I started having contractions. And they were about every 4 to 5 minutes apart, and they quickly approached like 3 minutes. So I was texting my midwife and she was like, well, do you want me to come? Can you talk through them? And they were getting a little intense, but again, I didn't experience early labor before. So I was like, well, if it was a 4 hour labor my first time, they always say it goes quicker, you know? So I'm like, I've got that expectation and I'm afraid of having this baby on my own, that I was like, maybe you should come. And so she came, and then of course my labor kind of stalled, and like my whole team came. So it was my two midwives, their student, and then my sister and my sister-in-law were there. And my mother-in-law took my daughter to their house so that I could kind of focus. And it became like a battle of trying to get my labor to pick up. And I'm so excited, like I want this baby, so I'm like, let's do whatever. She has me doing these squats and these going up and down the stairs. I probably did at least 14 flights of stairs, if not more. And I was just like so excited. I'm like, let's do this. I have all the energy. Retrospectively, I shouldn't have done that, but I was just like, I'm gonna do this and this baby's gonna come. But to be at home was so peaceful. Like, we had worship music in our living room that was on our big speaker, and it was just dark. I had twinkly lights. We had a birth pool set up, and it was just like, I don't know. It was so peaceful and exactly what I prayed for. I had a lot of moments of just like tearfulness and just intimacy with the Lord during that time. And people were trying to kind of give me space, and Seth would be with me, but they kept stalling. So I'm like, what are we going to do? And they did like the mile circuit, and it would pick up a little bit and then it would stop. And so, I don't think I knew I hadn't fully broke my water. And so in the hospital, this is when they would probably introduce Pitocin. And so the midwives are like, well, what can we do? They were giving me homeopathies, different things, tinctures to kind of help. So my labor kept stalling and we couldn't figure out why. And at one point, my midwife pulled me aside and she's like, Lori, what is going on? And I was like, a flood of emotions came, and I was like, I am just so heartbroken for my friend who lost her baby 2.5 weeks ago. And I was like, I feel guilty for being excited and for going through this. And not in a sense of like, I shouldn't, but it's just like that immense heartache for my close friend. And it just like, I can't even fathom what she was feeling, but to be right along the same journey and to have where she is versus like I'm about to have this baby, I just felt like an unworthiness in a sense of just like I didn't want her to feel the way that she was feeling. And it was so challenging, and my team got around me and they all laid hands on me and prayed and just like surrendered that emotional burden to the Lord. And it really helped me like I had to focus and emotionally focus on this baby and be in that moment. And so that was super challenging, but that really helped get that weight off of my mind. But they were like, why don't you and Seth like go to the shower, stir up some oxytocin because that's a natural hormone that's like Pitocin, but it's real. And so they're like, we can leave the house. Like, we don't want you to feel weird or awkward. That's actually what picked up my labor, which is so funny. It actually worked. But after that, they were getting pretty intense. And the student midwife was really like a doula to me. She put me in a lot of different positions, and she was having me do this awful deep squat with each contraction. And that it hurt so bad. And I was like, are you sure? And with everyone, she told me to do it. But finally, with like, I don't know, I had it done probably not even 10, but my water burst like a movie. Like it was really
Wow.
intense.
Yeah.
And so once that happened, I got in the water and it was about 45 minutes from then. But my contractions went way up. My midwife didn't want to check me, but I was really uncomfortable. And I was just like, we need to get this baby out. But she had me do like side lying in the pool to really like, I guess the idea is to make sure that the head is on either side, making sure that you're fully dilated. So I did, I think, 10 minutes on each side, and then I was on all fours. They told me on all fours, they were like, they could see in the mirror that his head was right there. And they were like, Lori, you can feel his head. So I reached down there and I touched it, and it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by this point, I'm exhausted. It's been probably 12 to 14 hours, and I was like doing all this and expending so much energy. I was eating a little bit, but I didn't feel like I wanted to eat a lot. So my energy was way low. So when I felt him, I was like, cool, this baby is coming out the next contraction. And I had said that in my mind, and that's exactly what happened. The next contraction came, and I pushed with all my might, which I know is exactly what you're not supposed to do, but I was done. I was
Yeah.
ready to have
Yeah.
this baby in my arms. And so Hannah laughs. She's like, you torpedoed that baby out. But she stiff armed him under the water. Here, his cord was wrapped around his neck, and she was just like, "You can't pull him up too quickly. That would make it really hard to pull off. So hold on
Yeah.
a second." And so I
Yep.
got him and put him up on my chest, and it was just so, so amazing. I didn't realize the emotional component and how much that plays into birth, and if I'm not fully surrendered to the Lord in all aspects. Like my body isn't able to do the things that need to be done in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that because like looking at my births with my second, I feel like that is one of the reasons why I was almost 42 weeks before I had him because I kept thinking to myself like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't prepare enough. I didn't do this. I need to do that. I don't want them to share the same birthday." And like all of this stuff that finally when I was able to just relax, truly get into the presence of the Lord, truly pursue just Him and just God's will. Like, I've done this before, but it's not my strength. A lot of times, that mental and emotional aspect of birth is not addressed as much. Like, we consider it just such a medical thing that, oh, you need to prepare medically, you need to prepare physically, but what about the emotional and the mental space? I think that birth is very, very mental as well, just from my own experiences. If you're not in the right headspace, there's just a lot more that can happen. But being in that right headspace really helps you as well. So, what would you say was different emotionally and spiritually during your home water birth compared to your first hospital birth?
I mean, I feel like it was a lot more freedom to do what I wanted to do when I wanted in the moment. And I could kind of do what felt right in the hospital. I felt like I had like this box I had to stay in. I could have some options in that box, but if I wanted to go out of it, I just couldn't. And that's just not their process. Or, there's a reason that they say that they can't. At home, there was just so much more liberty in making those choices that felt right, that were focused. Like it just, the whole atmosphere was more of a worship than it was in the hospital. It's just a different environment, and our home is peaceful. The Lord is here, and it's just like it was a completely different experience in that sense. And then just to be at home with my baby right away and not
Yeah.
have nurses coming in every hour checking in on me and the baby. And it was just like, it was a very intimate postpartum. I will say our house was very small. So every kid has been born in a different place because we moved right before I had my third. But I just want to say if you are afraid of having a home birth because you're in an apartment or it's a small house, we had a home birth in a 1,200 square foot old farmhouse, no basement. It was tight, but it was still like it was the most amazing experience. And I would do it over and over again. Like that should never be something that holds you back because the birth team will figure it out and you can do things in different ways. You can reorganize your house for like the day. It's not a big deal, but it was very meaningful.
Yeah, no, I love that too. Just because no matter what, you need to birth in a place that you are going to feel safe to birth because that's a big game changer too. Like if you have anxiety with being at the hospital, and you have a low risk pregnancy, and obviously there's no outliers that you're gonna probably definitely need medical attention, then you probably shouldn't birth at a hospital. Look into a birth center. Maybe the birth center is a happy medium for you, or go with a home birth because you're going wherever you feel safe, that's where you should birth. And whoever you feel safe with, that's who you should birth with too. Did your preparation look different the third time around?
Yes, because I wasn't necessarily getting a lot of the head knowledge that I needed for my first, because I just had no idea. And the second, doing a home birth, I feel like still did quite a bit of study or like looking into things. The third, I didn't as much, but it was like a very, I don't know how to say it, but more like of an intimate walk with the Lord. I had done it in the hospital, I had done it at home, and there were things that I learned from both of those. And a lot of it was just like, I need to be real with the Lord and like get everything out. Like, I didn't want to hold anything back this time. And so I took my fears, I took my concerns. I took my wants. Like, this was really deep in my heart, and I would love to have this happen. Now, I didn't say those things to the Lord expecting that I want A, B, and C, and this is how it's going to look, or else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
God is not a vending machine. And so I was not going to Him with that, but He does care about what we want. And He asks us to ask Him anything. And He wants, ask and the door will be open. Like He wants to know our hearts, even though He knows all of our thoughts. But like to take that time, I feel like it was just more of an intimate walk with the Lord. Like, I would love to see this happen. Like, I want it to go fast. I don't want everyone to be at my house all day. Like, I want it to be quick. I want it to be smooth. Like, if it's your will, Lord, please help it be smooth and quick. And it's okay if my midwife doesn't make it. Like, I was even praying things like that because my midwife said if things go fast like that, it's usually because there's nothing hindering. Like, it's a smooth, fast birth. Usually, like, everything's healthy. And so to me, I heard that and I was like, cool, I'll pray for that. And so that was definitely just, I was just more detailed with what I hoped, but I also had that open hand of like, Lord, your will be done. Like, it will be okay no matter what, but I would love to see this. And it was just more of a, I don't know, conversation with the Lord throughout,
Yeah.
which was nice.
But I'm going to go ahead and just let you jump into your next story.
Yeah. So our third Lainey, we had moved, let me think, 2 months before we had her. So there was a lot going on there. But everything was good. I did have a lot more Braxton Hicks this time, but I did have like two little toddlers that I was still carrying a lot and doing a lot of things with. But I was so tired this pregnancy. It was exhausting, but I think that when you have a lot of those Braxton Hicks, it's just like, it's taking a lot of your energy that you don't expect. So for her, I had mentioned a little bit that I was praying specifically that it would be a smooth, fast birth, that even my midwife wouldn't make it. And my husband heard that prayer like 2 weeks before I had her. And he was like, excuse me, you need to change that right now. It was like, there is no way that I'm okay with that. And so I was like, and so in those last 2 weeks, I did change my prayer a little bit to be like, I still ask Lord that if it's your will, may it go smooth, fast, but can Hannah make it like just in time?
Yeah, yeah.
So that did change. I did have one of my best friends at my birth that she came specifically to take pictures and be there to be that support person. My sister did that the first time, which was so nice. And to have the birth video and just like different clips throughout the day, because it just all goes so quick. So it's fun to look back. So she came specifically for that. This was like a Saturday night going into a Sunday, and it was like the same for that Otto was. It was like 39 days plus 4. And I woke up for the second time to go to the bathroom that night, and I was like, dang it, I have to go to church again tomorrow pregnant. I was so upset. It was like 1 or 2 a.m. And I was just like, "Ugh, I was really hoping to have a baby in my arms this Sunday." And that's a very selfish thing to think, but I was just like, it's okay. And so I went to the bathroom, went back to bed, and then around 3:30 a.m. I started having contractions, and I was like, oh, this is exciting. And so I was laying there. I was like, okay, relax, Lori. Like, all I need to do is just let my body do what it needs to do, try to rest. And so I was laying there for a while. I ended up pulling up the little contraction app to just see how far apart they were. And like, pretty quickly, I would say within 30 minutes, they were like 3 minutes apart, lasting 45 seconds, and they were getting pretty intense. And so I ended up waking up Seth, and I was like, I think the labor's starting. Like, there were some things that we hadn't prepped yet. And so, like, getting the sheets ready on the bed and just making sure the liner was in the birth pool and stuff. So we kind of got some things set. And I think I called Hannah and I told her what was going on. And she was like, well, do you want me to come or do you want me to wait? And I was like, let's just wait. Because with Otto, it was so long. Everyone was there for so long. I didn't want to rush it and wanted to make sure that it was really for real and no stalling. So we got everything ready and laid back down. And I tried to rest. And they just kept getting more intense. And was doing my best to relax. It was about 5:45. I was just getting really uncomfortable. And I was like, I think I need to get up and go to the bathroom. And I got up and it was the waterworks. Like as soon as I stood up, it was like a water balloon popped. And Seth was like,
Wow.
is that your water? I'm like, oh yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
This is really happening. And so he helps me waddle over to the toilet. And I called Hannah and I was like, my water broke. Like, I need you to come. And so she came and I had texted my friend Victoria and my mother-in-law to come to be with the kids when they woke up. Because this was 5:45. My kids usually wake up between 6 and 6:30. So I just wanted to have someone here to help be with them. And I sat on the toilet. It's funny you say you liked birthing on the toilet. I never have. And I sat there and it was like, yeah, I was there for a while.
Yeah.
And I just tried to do my best. I still kept trying to grasp things and tighten a little bit, but just like, low tones, slow. I was definitely already making noises and I was like, okay, it's happening. And Seth was trying to work to like fill up the birth pool and we didn't have the right connector and all this stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
having these like intense contractions and I was just like, you know what? Honey, it's just not going to happen. And I don't want you messing with it. I need you. So, in this time, I had a specific birth playlist that I had been putting together the whole time. And it was just like things that were really meaningful to me that reminded me of God's character. And so, within 20 minutes, I think Victoria had gotten there and she saw me on the toilet and she was like, I think you should get off. I was having contractions. So this was like 10 after 6. And I was like, I think you're probably right, but this
Yep.
feels really good. And
Yep.
so we got off and moved into the room. And it was funny. I was like leaning on the birth pool. I wasn't going to be able to get in at this time, but that was okay. And it wasn't 10 minutes later. And I was like, I'm pushing. Sure enough, Seth is like going around behind me and there's like fluids and things coming out and he's like trying to be strong, but he was like, Victoria said he was pale as a ghost. He was looking and a lot of stuff was coming out and he was not okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, 5 minutes later, Hannah walked in the door and I was just like, Hannah, I'm pushing. And she's like, okay. She's
Yeah.
like, why hasn't anyone called me? Like, we're okay. But Seth quickly bolted from around the back of me to my head and was so glad she was here. And
Yes.
within 2 contractions, our daughter came out, which actually we
Wow.
didn't know that we didn't know her gender. And so that was really cool this
Yeah.
time around to like have her and I pulled her up to my chest and Seth's like, well, what is it? Is it a boy or girl? I was like, I don't know. It's like I'm scared to look. I don't know. It's just like so many emotions. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I was like, you look. And I spread her legs and he saw right away. And so it was so special. And it was just the four of us there. And yeah, and something I'll never forget. they helped me get to the bed pretty soon, and within 20 minutes, the kids got to come in and see and meet their sister, and that was just, it was amazing. And it was funny, partway through the labor, the kids did come in when they woke up around 6, and I was talking to them, but then, a contraction would happen.
Yeah.
My daughter's eyes got so big looking at me as I'm like, hello.
Yeah.
And as soon as it was over, I was like, honey, mommy's okay. Mommy's totally fine. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't want her to have any fear around it. Like,
Yeah.
didn't mind if the kids would be there, but I didn't want them to be scared at all. So,
Yeah.
but that was such an answer to prayer for it to be quick, to be smooth. It was just so, I don't know, it was a very intimate birth with the Lord. And she came out to the song, So Will I. And it was just like, that is such a meaningful song to me. And just like, I see your heart in everything you made, Lord. And just like, if all creation is going to worship you, so will I. And like, yeah, if the rocks cry out, like so will I, just like this baby is crying out. And it was just like a very,
Yeah.
very intimate experience.
Yeah, and that's definitely a memory that will be etched in your brain forever because that is just it's just so amazing when you just see God's hand in every little detail too. Even because obviously you were hoping for a water birth, but that didn't work out. But even though that didn't work out, like you can still see God's hand in it all. Like that, I just think that's so amazing. You had said that you waited to find out the gender. Can you just kind of tell us like what that was like?
It was amazing. I've always wanted to do that from the beginning. And my husband is very much of like, I need to know. He's a planner. And so when we first had our first, he was like, I need to know. And I didn't fight too hard. Well, I tried a little bit, but he was not budging. And he was like, well, I'll find out and you don't. And like, that never works. Like, that's an option. Like, if you're finding out, I'm finding out. And so for our first, we did a gender reveal, and it was so fun to have like a celebration with family for that. Our second, we found out as soon as we could, basically at 14 weeks with a ultrasound, and just went us and our daughter, and that was so special. He just really wanted to know if there was going to be a boy.
Yes, yeah.
Or and like have time to prepare if it was another girl, because
Yeah.
his side, they're all girls, all the grandkids. And
Wow.
so there's no baby to carry on the spire's name. So he's really hopeful for a boy, and he just
Yeah.
wanted to know, even though I still wanted to wait. But I lost that battle. So then, third time, I was like, we have one of each. Like I want a surprise, and I'm putting my foot down. Like there's no question.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he did not like it the whole time, and he kept wanting to. And we only did one ultrasound at 8 weeks because my friends had me convinced I was having twins because of my intense symptoms. But I think it was
Mm.
just because I had two toddlers, and it was
Yeah.
just really intense. But so I did that one, and then I didn't do any more because I've studied so many ultrasounds that I was like, we're going to go get one and I'm going to know. And I just don't want to know. I don't know. There's just not many secrets today. I mean, there are in some aspects, but not really of like surprises. And it was really neat to just have that. Like, I appreciated praying for our kids by name for the first two. Like, that was really special too. But I still felt connected to this one, even though
Yeah.
I wasn't praying over the baby by name. And I would talk to it all the time, and really it was going to be fine either way. I really wanted Avery to have a sister. I wanted Otto to have a brother. It was going to be fine. But I loved it. It was very special.
I love that. So, you talk a lot about just preparing your heart and mind and soul for birth, labor, motherhood. What does that actually look like in a practical sense?
Yeah, to me, now this might look different to everyone, but
Yeah.
for like the heart aspect, it goes to like what's important, most important to me and my husband, like in birth, like what do I ideally want to see in that like in the most optimal sense. I want to focus on what's most important to me and my thoughts and preparation for that. Now, in terms of mind, like focusing on what I can control, which isn't a whole lot, but sometimes like we can't necessarily control the negative thought that comes in our mind, but we can control whether we let it sit there and spiral or to kick it out and replace it with truth. like Satan is sneaky and he wants to get in our minds, even preparing for birth, and to put doubt and fears. And we have the power of the Word of God to be able to kick that out. And we can choose to fill our mind with truth instead, so that we're saturating ourselves in the positive, good things, that we're reminding of who God is and what he's done and he will do. And so trusting on that rather than trying to take control, because when we take control, that's when it becomes so much more, it's up to me, and it's really not. And just having that surrender like we've talked about. But and then to soul, it's like my hope and trust is fully in Jesus, which allows my soul to rest. And to me, like that just gives me a hope and a peace that like I can't even explain.
Yeah.
But home here is temporary, and our forever home is with Jesus. And when I truly remind myself of that and have that perspective, it's like, why am I worrying? Trust that He is in control and that I can trust Him with my fears, my concerns, my
Yeah.
doubts, but take that to Him rather than talking to someone else and maybe getting more negativity, or
Yeah.
like just taking my fears and concerns to the one who has all the answers.
That's so good. What would you say to moms who want a faith-filled birth but just don't really know where to start spiritually?
So I would say, like, be real in your prayer life. I don't know how else to say that, but like sometimes I feel like, especially with social media and things, we want to copy what other people are doing, but like their struggles, their holdups, their good things, their experiences aren't the same as mine. So I can't take that into my relationship with the Lord, because that's why it's a relationship. It's specific to me and him. And so just like he cares about the lilies and the birds, like how much more does he care for me? And so like taking that straight to him, being intentional about being in the word, not that it's like a checklist, but that's where I get to meet him and to be reminded of who he is and what he's done for his people in the past, what he says he's going to do, what he did through Jesus. Like that is where my hope is. And I can't let my mind wander to other things, because not truth necessarily. And just like being intentional to saturate my mind in his word that is alive and active. And the other thing would be like memorizing scripture. Some of the best things that we can do to combat those doubts and fears is to replace them with truth. Like, I don't know, some go-tos like be strong and courageous, for the Lord our God is with us wherever we go. Or for God gave us not a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of self-control. And now, like, I take verses and I'm not trying to say that they specifically apply to me, because it's in context, we have to take that. But I like being reminded of the character of God. And that's what I cling to. Like, he is in control and he is faithful. He is love. He wants to be intimate with us. So just reminding myself of that.
Yeah, no, that is so good. And I feel like you can take that in any realm of life as well: marriage, motherhood, birth, obviously, just an everyday thing of just renewing your mind with scripture. You had touched a little bit on how a support system is huge for you. What do you think makes a birth team truly life-giving, and how can moms build that support system?
You want to have people there who are important to you, or just like people that you can have your guard down. Because again, this is very vulnerable. You're very transparent. Everyone's seeing parts of your body that like
Yeah.
people don't typically see. You want to make sure that you feel comfortable, that you don't care in that moment, because you love and you trust these people enough to be there and just to be pouring in on you. And I think it was so helpful that my whole birth team was believers, and to have that also backing in prayer, and just also inviting the Holy Spirit there, and no other kind of blockages or hindrances or steering away from that it was just very, in both instances, very peaceful in terms of an environment and conducive to what God is trying to orchestrate in that moment.
Yeah. You don't want to have to be worried about anything else other than just birthing, and you don't want to be uncomfortable either. So like if you don't align fully with your midwife, your doula, a family member or anything like that, then that's kind of going to be in the back of your mind. That's kind of holding you back from being who you need to be during a very vulnerable time in your life of birthing. Yeah, I think that's really good. And you said that your biggest supports were your husband and your midwife. What made them so grounding for you?
I mean, both really from faith was so important. And obviously, my husband, we've been through this all together. He's the one that did this to me No, in the most
Yes.
beautiful way. But
Yes.
I'm just like, you are not leaving my side. Like, you need to be here. And he wants to. He obviously, that is a hard position for any spouse to be in, to watch your wife go through something like that and so intense, but also like him just having his hand on me. He's rubbing my back, just like he's my safe space, my home, and just like having him there with me through the contractions. I can squeeze his hand as hard as I can, and like he's gonna take it
Yeah.
because he knows what I'm experiencing is so much worse.
Yes.
To my midwife, I mean, the relationship that we grew, like in pregnancy, every appointment being an hour versus 5 minutes with my OB, like that changed things. Like I knew my midwife really well by the time I gave birth. And like, cause I had had 9 appointments that were an hour each. And like, I began to know her heart. I knew she was genuine. It wasn't a front for 5 minutes. Like, I really got to know her to where my walls were down with her. I trusted her completely. She was intentional to pray over me and my babies. And it was just like, there's just nothing that can replace that. I don't know. I guess I didn't have that with Avery, my first, and it was just different. And I didn't realize the immense impact that that has when you do have people that believe the same things as you. It's just a whole different outlook to everything. And to have
Yeah.
that same perspective going into this beautiful, intimate change in your life, or like, I don't know what the word is, but like, this moment that changes my life and our life, Seth and I's, forever. Like it was really neat to make that a worship and be safe with the people surrounding me.
Yeah. For any of the moms who are considering doing a home birth after their hospital birth, or even maybe they're wanting to do a home birth for their first, could you just kind of speak to like what you would want them to know or encourage them?
I would encourage you to do your due diligence and just go talk to a midwife. You don't have to commit to anything. They do these free consultations, and maybe the Holy Spirit will be like, yeah, you should do this. And maybe they won't. And that's okay too. And it's just having that peace of mind instead of just doing what you did last time or doing what your family member or friend did because they did it. Well, this is your experience with welcoming your baby into this world. And you don't want to have any regrets, and you want to learn and ask questions and have an informed decision. It's so hard to just listen to what other people do, but like this is an intimate thing for you and this baby and the Lord. And I would just encourage you to ask questions. Find someone that has had a home birth. Find someone that's had a hospital birth, ask them questions, and just not in a sense of them telling you what to do, but just to learn and see their sides of it, and probably several, because home births can be different. Hospital births can be way different. It's this delicate balance of like, you want to learn information, but you don't want to drown yourself in information because you could easily get overwhelmed by that. But I would encourage you just to speak to especially midwives too, because it's just they're so knowledgeable and experienced, and they know what to do in a crisis, and they also like to keep their hands off if they can. So it's just like this wonderful gift that they provide.
Yeah. And two, I think that a lot of times, just like you said, like you can go talk with a midwife and not commit. It's not that just because you talk to somebody you commit. It's the same with the hospital too. You can go to a hospital and have a first appointment there and realize like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want this place. Maybe a different hospital would work better for you if you're wanting to do it in a hospital. But I just remember for myself, I went to a local hospital just to get an ultrasound, just to confirm that I was pregnant because it was my first. And I was like, what do I do now? I'm like 10 weeks. Like, what am I doing? And so I went, and it was just so like, I literally felt like I was on a conveyor belt. I'm not kidding. Like, I don't even know that I actually had a legitimate conversation with anybody. It was just like, well, we're going to do this blood work. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you'll be good to go. And like, I didn't really like that. I encourage everybody to just explore your options a little bit, but just know you don't have to commit. If you don't feel safe, don't commit. Yeah. But now we've been talking a lot about obviously the faith aspect because it's obviously intertwined in everything. But did you ever have a moment when you realized that birth wasn't something that you needed to control, but something that you needed to surrender to?
Yes. And I feel like it's kind of like everything in life. It's like a constant, continual surrender. Because it's like, we know, like I know I need to surrender, but then it's like something happens and I get really tense and I pick it back up. But I gotta release it. And then I pick it back up and I release it. And it sounds so silly. It's like, I know that I shouldn't, but like I continue to pick up this thought, this doubt. And it's just like, let it go. Okay, the next contractions, don't pick it up, let it go. And just like, and I feel like the more births I've had, the easier that's been. Not to say that it completely goes away, but I think that the surrender aspect was definitely less. It was easier to do and less obstacles coming in the way. And it's just like, I don't know, it's something like your walk with the Lord. The more things you go through, the more you know that what God said is true. And so it's the little things that come up don't bother you like they used to. So I feel like that's very applicable to birth too. It's just like a constant surrender and and that's applied to your walk with the Lord.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Did motherhood or birth and labor deepen your faith in a way that nothing else ever has?
Completely. It's very exposing into like the most beautiful things, like God's love for me, his care, his attention to details, like he wants to know it all, but also like revealing of the ugly and like the sin nature and the things that I do or don't, maybe my attitude through that, especially with toddlers. It's a really trying time right now. The discipline stage is not for the faint of heart, but yes. Like, Lord, I need you every hour. I need you. And just, but you can like laugh at it because you see how like God must think about, look at the things that I do and like, what are you doing? You're my child. And just like, I can relate to that in a very small way, I'm sure, when I look at my children. It's just very revealing.
Yeah. I like to ask every guest who comes on the show this one question, and it is, if you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would it be?
Man, I would say you are created in the image of God, and he created you as a woman to birth, to be able to do this. Do the best you can to prepare your heart, to prepare your mind and your soul the best you can, but ultimately surrender your expectations to the Lord, which is so much easier said than done. And look for his hand through it all, because birth is life-changing. Pray expectantly, but also keep your hand open and truly believe like your will be done. And that's just been so impactful in my life and continuing to learn that as I go.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And Lori, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story.
Yes, thank you.
Lori's story is such a powerful reminder that surrender changes everything. Through prayer, support, and just trusting the Lord fully, birth becomes so much more than just a moment. It becomes a testimony. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode as we continue to reclaim birth. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Her Birth, Her Story. This episode resonated with you or encouraged you, please like, rate, review, subscribe to our podcasting channels, as this is the best way for us to reach more moms and encourage them through this amazing time. And don't forget, this is your body, your baby, and your birth. We are reclaiming birth one story at a time.